All powers to oppressed people. African power to an African people, and black power. It's your brother, Yang and Krumah, man. Coming to you again. Coming to you on this Saturday. Coming a little early, taking a break from getting my debate together. And keeping to the trying to keep steady in the schedule I've given. Every 2 days, I like to drop something about to further our history classes, to further what we're doing. And you know what we do at P.E.C. Our whole job is to really just give it to you raw like it is, historically, man. Trying to maintain the integrity of the movement for those of us that are serious about the advancement, the liberation, the freedom of Black Africans here in America. We've been going over the 4 developments or the 4 formations of the Black Panther Party. I went over the first 2. You have to go back. If you're serious about this thing, you need to go back and check the broadcast. But I went over the first 2. I'll do a recap now just to get us caught up. We're saying that the first, and there again, I'm reading from the writings of Dr.Muhammad Ahmad. Exceptional man, revolutionary action movement, RAM. I will be going into a little of the discussion of exactly what RAM is, how instrumental RAM was and is in our study and development as revolutionaries. So, peace, seduction. So, doing a recap. The first development of the Black Panther Party, the Lowndes County Freedom Organization, the LCFO, was founded in the late 1965 under the leadership of Stokely Carmichael of SNCC, SNCC. The LCFO was a Black independent electoral party in Alabama, using the tactics of armed self-defense. The LCFO chose the Black Panther as its symbol, and it became known as the Black Panther Party. The strategy of the BPP was to elect independent candidates in an attempt to control the community in which African Americans were the majority legally. This was the first development of the Black Panther Party. Like I said, have to go back and catch the podcast. Peace, Mellow Cow. Second development of the Black Panther Party occurred on the East Coast as SNCC, SNCC, developed an alliance with revolutionary Black nationalists in New York. The New York Black Panther Party, what we're calling the second development here. The New York Black Panther Party was established in June of 1966 and had approximately 250 members from July 1966 to October of 1966. Dates are important. Its purpose was to implement an independent Black electoral strategy in order to break the African American allegiance with the Democratic and Republican Party and eventually the capitalist system. This is what we're calling the second development. Well, last we left off, we were entering into, we talked about, listen, you have to go back and catch those podcasts because we talk about how the Panthers got to San Francisco. We talk about them beginning to move into the Bay Area and the conflicts that we begin to see arise from the coming of the third development. The coming of the third development. Now, what are we calling the third development? The third and most famous, depending who you ask, some would say infamous. The third and most famous development of the Black Panther Party occurred on October 15th, 1966, when Dr. Huey Newton and Bobby Seals drafted the 10-point program and platform of the party, Black Panther Party for Self-Defense in Oakland. And we went into a little bit, that's just a recap, and we went into a little bit of some insight into the development, into how Dr. Newton began to get put together these, the concept, the need for revolution, our social, cultural inflections. We found out early when you go back and listen to the podcast, his disdain for lackadaisicalness. Not, he was ready, reared, and geared for action. Even a disdain for just the over cultural nationalization or Afrocentricism, to the degree of more cultural expression and real actions. Like we found him falling out with one of the various groups that he had belonged to earlier. Go back and check out the podcast. So we getting a little insight into this, into his personality and the groups that he belonged to. Where we left off. We were left off, I believe, with Ernie Allen giving an insight into the character and personality of Dr. Newton. So, writings of Dr. Muhammad Ahmad, as we continue. According to Brother D, an ex-member of the Black Panther Party in Northern California, one of the discussions centered on the role of armed struggle. Bobby Seale and Huey P. Newton's position was that the armed vanguard went out and brought down repression on the community. The BPP of Northern California did not have the answer to how successfully to pull off a revolution, but knew from the lessons of Nazi Germany that premature repression could only crush a people's movement. What just happened here? What we find is we talked about, if you go back to the earlier podcast, the disagreement with the San Francisco Black Panther Party, which was largely still comprised of second development elements, which believed in a very radical reform. In fact, their defense policy, though they believed in armed self-defense and I would say more armed self-defense. I would say that, yes, revolutionary. They were, because they had bumped into the revolutionaries in New York. So that revolutionary element was there, but I would still say it largely possessed a proletarian, a working class, and a Black intellectual class. And so radical reformism still had a very strong attraction. An armed struggle just to them from that viewpoint and perception would not have been the route. So we find that Bobby Seale's and Newton's position was that an armed vanguard went out and brought down repression on the community. What does that mean? Go out and do what they did. They agitate, stir up trouble, push the law to its complete limit. Push the law to its complete limit. That's what they believe. Stir up, bring down the repression. Bring down the repression. Show the people who the enemy is and why the enemy holds you down. Show the very contradiction in laws and legislation that they say that they uphold and that they're for, and that this so-called democracy for the people and by the people has not looked at you as a people. Bring the repression, bring the heat, turn it up, put the people in a fight. But the BPP of Northern California, though admittedly saying they did not have the answer to how successfully to pull off a revolution, how to successfully get the people into a fight for self-determination, how to get them into their own thing. They said they knew from studying the lessons of Nazi Germany that premature repression could only crush a people's movement. Brother D further goes on to say, Bobby Seale saw the revolution as one gigantic shootout. Quote, a revolution is when the police is on one side of the street and the revolutionaries line up on the other side of the street, and whoever pulls their pieces first and gets off the rounds and survive wins the revolution. They say that's an interview with Brother D, ex-member of the BPP of Northern California, Amherst, Mass. 1978. I believe he's quoting or even quite possibly making a mockery of Bobby Seale's grasp of revolution. He's trivializing it. He's making it small. He says, a revolution is when the police is on one side of the street and the revolutionary lines up on the other side of the street, and whoever pulls their pieces first and gets off rounds and survive wins the revolution. You know, this type of romanticism, this is what the the Black Panther Party of Northern California had a problem with. On January 1st of 1967, The Black Panther Party for Self-Defense opened its office at 5624 Grove Street in North Oakland. 5624 Grove Street in North Oakland, January 1st, 1967. First office. And started an armed patrol monitoring police. The Oakland Panthers wore uniforms and openly displayed guns. Huey P. Newton, Minister of Defense, challenged the police over the right of armed self-defense on several occasions. Now we start seeing the break. Now we start seeing the separations. We start seeing more of the revolutionary element coming in. We start seeing more confrontation with the state, more challenging the state directly, not through the political process, but in direct confrontation, direct confrontation. But being the men of defense, them largely being starting off a political group, we see how the politics evolved the revolution. So their revolution wasn't led by just emotionalism. Their revolution, the steps to revolution, the process to revolution were very calculated. What does it say that he do? He says that after opening office, they started an armed patrol monitoring the police. The Oakland Panthers were uniformed and openly displayed guns. And Huey P. Newton, Minister of Defense, challenged police over the right of armed self-defense on several occasions. He didn't break the law. He challenged them, pointing out the contradictions. This is what he was talking about. Let's bring the repent. If we show the people are under the illusion or disillusion to believe that they are included in these policies or rights, and the ones that are know that they are not included in these rights and policies are too afraid to step up and challenge it. And not just challenge it, be willing to change it, revolution. So he said he would challenge them every opportunity he had. By the fall of 1966, the Black Panther Party had recruited its first members, mostly from Huey's neighborhood in Oakland, and he had set up a storefront office. It says something about the popular mode that folks could be recruited to join a tiny political It says something about the popular mood that folks could be recruited to join a tiny political group whose members had to publicly face off with the police while carrying guns. In public face-off, the Panthers refused to hand over their guns to the pigs, insisted loudly that if you shoot at me or if you try to take this gun, I'm going to shoot back. All the while lecturing the gathering new African crowd about their rights. The first time that happened in front of Black Panther's Grove Street storefront office, a dozen men who had been watching immediately joined. That's heavy. Let's read back over. It's talking about in the fall of 1966, the Black Panther Party had recruited its first members, mostly from Huey's neighborhood, where you should be doing action. If you're not effective right there where you are, then you're not doing anything. So right there from his neighborhood, they set up the storefront. Dr. Muhammad goes on to say, it says something about the popular mood. It says something about the environment to sway the movement. See, the movement isn't an organization. The movement is everything that evolves around your blackness, that encourages, inspires your blackness. The movement was the music that would say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud. The music was the dress, the dashikis, the afro. The movement was the vibe. What's happening, baby? Right on, soul, brother. Everything, that's the movement. That's the popular mood. That's why we call this a populist movement. That's the vibe, the sentiment of the people, the electricity running through the streets, you dig? And so the people were feeling that. And it says something to it that a tiny political group, I love that word, a tiny political group, because everything is politics. Politics is everything, right? Whose members had to publicly face off with the police while carrying guns. You had people wanting to join this group, and their only sensationalism was not YouTube, not cameras. Their only real at this time, because we're talking before the programs. We're not talking people coming because they get their baby getting those hot grits or shoes are being refurbished, or you have the seniors against fearful environments, safe seniors against fearful environments that where they protected the neighborhood. We're talking before all of these. We're talking that what joined these type of brothers, the bond that got these type of men active and ready to rock and roll out was how bad, man, they were, how they were standing up for their rights, how they were regaining and reclaiming black manhood in the form of black defense, an end to black exploitation and black victimization. What did they say they used to holler out in public face-offs when they was asked to hand over their guns? What did the Panthers used to holler out? And they quote, they insisted. You dig? I like that. They insisted loudly that if you shoot at me or if you try to take this gun, I'm going to shoot back. All the while lecturing the gathering of black folk, crowding around about their rights to carry guns. You have to love it. And action with political education, participation, observation, theory into practice at the highest level, engaging the masses in the day-to-day dialectics, in the day-to-day activities, in the day-to-day functions that they go about, and being confronted by the state arm wing known as the police in our communities is a reality that happens on us on the regular, happens to us on the regular. And here these brothers were putting demanding some, not just accountability, some responsibility, not just some accountability, but some responsibility. Consequences with actions. You're responsible. What happens when you're responsible for something you don't? Well, that's the accountability. I part of it, I guess. The whole nine that's attached to what freedom-loving people are entitled. You don't have to ask no government, no state for your right to exist unmolested. In fact, I think that this oppressor, this colonizer, understands that. This colonizer understands that. So he gives the illusion of particular freedoms, granted. He gives the illusions of particular freedoms, granted. So they're telling them, and so they're telling them, look, you ain't going to take my gun. And see, it ain't no fun when the rabbit got a gun. And they're demanding, and if you take my gun, you're violating my constitutional rights, my amendments. My Second Amendment right. Are you going to openly violate that? And then I'm willing to martyr myself for this cause of my rights as holding you accountable to the policies that you put in place that I'm no longer a denizen, that I am a citizen. So I'm covered by this. Now I'm challenging you on that. And you take my gun and I shoot you. Will I be wrong? I'm willing to go to court and stand on that. This was the type of stances and positions they had put themselves in to expose the very beastly nature, the very contradictive nature of the state when it comes to a class of people based on largely race. So it said with this type of thing, man, people immediately wanted to join up. The Black Panther Party of Northern California, though, felt it was adventurous to be openly carrying guns. They felt it led to premature confrontations with the police and unnecessary repression. But the Oakland Panthers continued to grow and they began to get public attention. See, like I said, remember the San Francisco Panthers or the Northern California Panthers, this particular time largely comprised of second developed membership who were radically reformists. We look at, and this is no slight, we just look at the people whom really put their everything into reform or even radical reform. They are largely people who have something vested in the state, where you find the people they still believe that they can squeeze wring something out of the state. So they still wrestle with it. Whereas the revolutionary has come to the understanding that the state and all its superstructures to keep the system operating, are exploitive, if not right, illegal, criminal to the development of human beings. We look at, just briefly to touch on, and I'll have to come back and have a show, look at the brothers and sisters who have served time, how they're doubly penalized, sometimes triply penalized, sometimes penalized triple time. Now, after serving their time, they come out and serve time in parole or some form of probation, some type of restitutions paid that's coming out of their money. And then on top of that, now they have a letter, the scarlet letter, I like to call it, which says felony anytime they apply for a particular type of job or want to break out of the economic box that they've been placed in. But that, that thing there really can hold people back. So the bureaucracy, the bull stuff, the red tape and everything, just the social shaming, the stigma attached to all of that is so much bullshit that it regulates and keeps people in a certain class. And the only solution for a lot of these people who have been stamped to still be the fuel of this system, the only thing really for them is revolution to change it. Ain't no reform, there's no law they're going to vote in place and any of that. We understand that all of that is a farce. So but you had an element still largely attached to that. And this element believed that something could be done through radical reformism, second development. And they thought that brandishing the firearms or this armed propaganda, as I've later been told that it was called, this aspect of it. And it wasn't just empty propaganda. Don't run up on them. They knew their rights and they were ready to exercise it to the fullest for the sake of revolution. The NBPP of Northern California thought that to be adventurous, that it would lead to premature confrontations with the police and unnecessary repression. But the Oakland Black Panther parties continued to grow. They began to get public attention. While this appeared revolutionary, the BPP of Northern California felt it was romantic and would bring a premature repression of military police complex against the party before it be able to build a cadre from the masses. The question of, quote, underground was the question of whether use of public military confrontation, which Ram felt the movement was not prepared for, versus the discreet, behind-the-scenes armed self-defense counterattacks, which the movement had used for years in the South, as well as in the North, would be successful. Okay, so now here's the discussion going down. Here's what they're discussing and talking about. The tactic, the underground, the question of underground, whether the use of public military confrontation, which Ram felt the movement wasn't prepared for, or the discreet behind-the-scenes armed self-defense, counterattacks, which the movement had used for years in the South. So we're entering into this phase, and I can understand what he was going through, having the advantage of hindsight. We're still talking a very revolutionary time. We're talking the atmosphere is electrically charged with international revolution. Places are winning their freedoms. And Huey is a student, and he's around student organizations, which are around exchange students, which begins to, just broaden your horizon. It broadens your horizon. It helps you to think outside the box. It introduces you to not just new ideologies, but the possibility of new outcomes to your struggle when you factor in new components, equations. So now we come in this time too, Frantz Fanon is large. If you're not familiar with Frantz Fanon, check it out. And the question of violence in the revolution, violence against colonialism, is the hot question. The question of the use of violence, of the infusion of violence, how violent is violence, and all of these wonderful things, with these wonderful discussions in revolutionary struggle are the hot topic. And so here we find us discussing it. It coming amongst our people as, its place in our struggle. Ram is of the opinion, Revolutionary Action is of the opinion that public military confrontation, open confrontation, open arm struggle, like they said, the carrying of the guns, straight confrontation, if that's what the state wants. Ram felt like that the movement wasn't prepared for that. They hadn't got the cadres together. They hadn't got certain aspects together that they feel like were essential in order to sustain that type of action, that type of move or direction. However, as verses, so what they were saying, but why are we going from the discreet behind the scenes armed self-defense attacks movements that we used for years in the South? They hit us, guerrilla army, we hit back. We have a few of those. I'm gonna have to dig the history up of that. Armed self tit for tat, that it doesn't bring down mass repression, not just on the party, but on the masses of people. This is what Ram is saying. But like I said, we see the evolution coming in. I'm going to remain objective. I'm just going to read the fact. But we see evolution coming in. We see the factor that we're not in the South anymore. We're on the West or out West, where the repression is different. The repression isn't just largely black and white repression. It's also in California, you're factoring in the struggle of Latino brothers and sisters. The whole, the struggle becomes different, and you're factoring in, like I said, more of an internationalist element. I can only imagine how much more Marxist-Leninist, through the way of Mao, through the understanding of Mao, is beginning to come in and shape the movements and the thought process of our brothers and sisters. So this was the talk on armed struggle. Public, open, military confrontation, or discreet behind-the-scenes armed self-defense, like counterattacks. In his essay, The Correct Handling of the Revolution, July 20th, 1967, Huey responded to Ram's criticism that the BPP should not use armed self-defense openly. Quote from Huey. He says, "A vanguard party is never underground in the beginning of its existence. That would limit its effectiveness and educational goals. How can you teach people if the people do not know and respect you? The party must exist above ground as long as the dog power structure will allow, and hopefully, when the party is forced to go underground, the party's message will already have been put across to the people." That's Huey P. Newton, Toni Morris edition, To Die for the People, Selected Writings and Speeches. So Huey said in this To Die for the People, check it out, Huey's philosophy. Dr. Newton said, a vanguard, we are going to go into all of this. Remember, vanguard party. I'm going to go into what a vanguard party is. A lot of us have heard that used. A lot of these so-called parties, and particularly Black Panther parties, are slapping vanguard and have no idea what a vanguard party is. So we'll have the opportunity to go for that. But now in this, Dr. Newton is saying a vanguard party is never underground in the beginning of its existence. That would limit its effectiveness and educational goals. He questions, how can you teach a people if the people do not know and respect you? The party must exist above ground as long as the dog power structure will allow. And hopefully, when the party is forced to go underground, the party's message will already have been put across to the people. That can be found in To Die for the People. Wow. Heavy stance Dr. Newton is taking. Heavy stance. Sundata Ayakola, a previous member of the Black Panther Party, also a political prisoner and a member of the New York 21. Uncle Sundata, I'm going to put out the letter he wrote to my father, man. Great man when he did fall through the house before they jammed him up. Sundata Ayakola, a previous member of the Black Panther Party, also a political prisoner and a member of the New York 21. In a historical reflection, assesses mistakes of the Black Panther Party. He says, combined above, I know this writings. This is also, I know this book. I've read this book. This is from Essays of Revolutionary Black History, a Critique of the Movement by Sundata Akola. I know this book. Great book. We'll go through that. Sundata says, quote, combined above and underground. Combined above and underground. This was the most serious structural flaw in the Black Panther Party. Members who functioned openly in Black Panther Party offices or organized openly in the community by day, they might very well have been the same people who carried out armed operations at night. This provided the police with a convenient excuse to make raids on any and all Black Panther offices or members' homes under the pretext that they were looking for suspects, fugitive, weapons, and or explosives. It also sucked the Black Panther Party into making the unwinnable position of making stationary defenses of Black Panther Party offices. There should have been a clear separation between the above ground party and the underground apparatus. Also, small military forces should never adopt as a general tactic the position of making stationary defenses of offices, homes, buildings, etc. Yep, that is from A Brief History of the Black Panther Party and Its Place in the Black Liberation Movement by Sundata Akola. Yeah. Let's go through that. Let's do the political science on that. Let's do the bill. We got what? Yeah, a couple more minutes, man. You know I like to go 40 minutes to the hour. So we got a couple more minutes. Let's do the build on that. What Uncle Sundata Akola is saying. He's saying combined above ground and underground, and combined above ground and underground. This was the most serious structural flaw in the Black Panther Party. Members who functioned openly in the Black Panther Party offices or organized openly in the community by day might very well have been the same people who carried out armed operations at night. Structural flaw, he says. Structural flaw. Why? Sundata goes on to explain why. He said this provided the police with a convenient excuse to make raids on any and all Black Panther offices or members' homes under the pretext they were looking for suspects, fugitives, weapons, and or explosives. Wow. It opened up the pretext for them to run into our spot. We had something similar personally happen when they used, when they broke their own law. They should be charged with filing a false report. When they used these pretexts to enter one of our offices, our Black Panther offices, accusing us of having a body in the closet. Just enough to try to gain access to the office. And when they did pull off this bogus raid, which they were severely reprimanded for by the state, the city, the true intentions came out. It was the armament and the computers, the guns and the computers. That's what they really wanted. But just like any functioning Panther chapter that knows what to do, we didn't get caught up in that snare. So anywho, we find that the police will allow or will utilize any excuse to come into the office, the homes of members, and this combining the above ground and the underground, this combining of community operators, officers, you know what I'm saying, that function in the office, this combining of that community service with the actions, with the underground actions, gave the police pretenses to come in and to do what police do. He also says it sucked the Black Panther Party into taking unwinnable positions of making stationary defenses of the Black Panther Party office. He warns against that. He said there should have been a clear separation between the above ground party and the underground apparatus. Also, military forces. Here is some advice for our military forces. Take it or leave it. You're the military people. but it's from Sundata Code. I probably would at least thoroughly investigate it if I disagree. Also, military forces should never adopt, as a general tactic, the position of making stationary defenses of office, homes, buildings, etc. This can be found in a brief history of the Black Panther Party and its places in the Black Liberation Movement. The Revolutionary Action Movement had a military alliance with the Deacons for Defense, which had been in existence since 1965. Because of the nature of the U.S. government's plan to destroy the movement, the practical aspects of this alliance remained, quote, secret within the movement, known to those who were involved in it. Due to Huey P. Newton and Bobby Seals being younger politically than the Deacons for Defense, SNCC, the OAAU, Organization of African American Unity, that's Malcolm's group, and RAM, Revolutionary Action and Movement, forces disregarded this successful military experience that was passed on from real military confrontations with the Southern Police and the KKK. So the question of building an underground military wing came from East Coast, Midwest, and Southern RAM organizers working with Malcolm X in his formation of the OAAU, with Robert F. Williams, who organized armed Black self-defense groups in the fight against the KKK in Monroe, North Carolina, in 1959 through 1960, and confrontations in South Carolina, Louisiana, Alabama, and Mississippi with the Deacons for Self-Defense. Much of the public open display of arms position was at that time being purported by the Bay Area sections of the Socialist Workers' Party, who politically influenced Huey's thinking at the time. Okay, a lot just happened there. So we find a little-known armed self-defense group called the Deacons for Defense, Robert F. Williams, Negro with Guns. Check the book out. There was an armed self-defense group, and they had formed an alliance with SNCC, RAM, the Organization of African American Unity, to be the military wing. Due to the volatile nature, the explosive climate at that time, that relationship was kept secret. It was an underground apparatus. Why? We're talking radical reformist movements here, or if not radical, revolutionary movements that were like the OAAU, and even around elevating our struggle to an internationalist struggle. And they felt that the armed aspect of that would bring premature repression. It would bring undue state attention before they could elevate the struggle, at least to some degree, to internationalism, get the recognition they need. They feared that it would bring the type of repression that it did bring in some instances. And since it wasn't on an international level, that repression would be domestic repression, and it would be on a civil level. Therefore, the actions would not be the actions of revolutionary, but would be portrayed as the actions of criminal, and they would be held according to domestic or national, instead of international laws, national laws, held as criminals of the particular states that they were in, subject to the state's laws and interpretation of those freaking laws, and every other way that they sequestered and tried to suppress the revolution. So this was the concern. So they formed. One of the, like I said, little known secrets is that we had self defense groups, Deacon Defense being one, partnering with these other groups, making it a political defense group. Hence the Black Panther Party in inception, in loose design concept. We find here that Dr. Muhammad is saying, but so they were more clandestine, they were more underground. A lot of the open public displays of arms that were being purported came from the Bay Area. And they largely first started with the Bay Area section of the Socialist Workers' Party, who politically influenced Huey P. Newton. And that was in an interview with Kenneth Freeman through telephone in Philadelphia, talking to, I believe, the San Francisco Courier or something, the pages or a little. But that interview came from Kenneth Freeman. who is telling this tablet information. And I think that that's interesting to note. You should note this. That a large of the influence came from the Socialist Workers' Party, especially to openly carry the policy, this type of thing, pushing revolution. I think that this is important to note. In February 1967, armed Panthers marched into the airport and escorted Miss Betty Shabazz, Malcolm X's widow, to an awaiting car. Cleaver conceived of a three-day program for February 1967 that would memorialize Malcolm's assassination and serve also as a forum for the resurrection of the OAAU. Malcolm's widow, Betty Shabazz, would give her blessing to the idea in a keynote speech on the final day of the program. Thus, late in January, Cleaver sent out a call to the Black organizations in the Bay Area, asking them to assist in setting up a steering committee to plan for the memorial. Responding to Cleaver's invitation, several organizations came together to form a temporary coalition known as the Bay Area Grassroots Organization Planning Committee. Dig. So Eldridge Cleaver at this time is sending out this call to organizations to come together, to form, to host Sister Betty Shabazz to come in to give the blessings for the resurrection of the for the Organization of African American Unity. So right on. So Cleaver sends the call out. Bay Area organizations, they respond, they come together for a temporary coalition known as the Bay Area Grassroots Organization Planning Committee. Cleaver's planning committee called for a change of the proposed program for the memorial from a 3-day event to an entire week. Ms. Betty Shabazz was to give the keynote address on the opening night. The Black Panther Party for Self-Defense was asked to be the honor guard for Ms. Betty Shabazz. But what made the Oakland Panthers famous was their march on the state capitol to protest California's gun laws. So we find that the Black Panther Party, with them already practicing the open carry, with them already being known for, stepping out this type of grit, this type of, this is their stance with it. They was asked to be Mrs. Shabazz, the wife of Minister Malcolm X, our dear beloved Malcolm X. They was asked to be her honor guard while she was going to give the keynote speech to commemorate the resurrection of the Organization of African American Unity, the OAAU. It says, though, but the Black Panthers was really made famous for their march on the state capitol to protest the California gun laws, which I'm sure he will get into when I talk about pushing to the limit radical reform. The Black Panther Party for Self-Defense in Oakland was in constant conflict with the Black Panther Party in San Francisco and Los Angeles. The conflict escalated when Eldridge Cleaver began to rise in the Oakland hierarchy. Gun battles almost occurred between the branches. The Oakland branch began publishing a paper called The Black Panther with Cleaver as the editor. So what's going down here? We already see when we go back and read the earlier beefs or disagreements, we start to see them come up earlier, man. We see the third development under Chairman Bobby Seals, Defense Minister Dr. Newton, practicing more of a revolutionary, more of a confrontational stance, more of an open carry, coming into conflict with what has been a long-standing tradition, a long-standing way that we've done things as purported or sponsored by the second development. And so we begin to see the shifts. We don't hear a lot about a lot of them working together, except when they come together and the Panthers begin to be the honor guard for Sister Shabazz. What doesn't go in, this is the time that Eldridge sees the Black Panther Party and wants to be a part of. So Eldridge becomes a part of the party. Now, Eldridge was fiery. Here he comes. So the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense in Oakland was in constant conflict now. You know what I'm saying? With the Black Panther Party in San Francisco and Los Angeles. The conflict escalated when Eldridge Cleaver began to rise in the Oakland hierarchy, when Eldridge started to get some rank, the conflicts escalated because Eldridge was radical. Eldridge was revolutionary. I'm sure he was pushing the limit. It said gun battles almost occurred between the branches. Been there. The Oakland branch began publishing a paper called the Black Panther Party with Cleaver as its editor. The Oakland Black Panther Party for Self-Defense was different from the other BPPs. It was a public paramilitary party with no separation of military from political strategy. Huh? That's heavy. That's heavy. The Oakland Black Panther Party with self-defense was different from the other BPPs. It was a public paramilitary party with no separation of military from political strategy. And we're going to go into that. But why was that unique? Why could Huey pull that off? Here's why. Huey agreed with Mao Zedong that political power grows out of the barrel of a gun, but also believed that according to revolutionary principles, the gun was a tool to be used in the strategy of teaching African Americans their right to armed self-defense, as it was not an end in itself. What? This is why I was saying that Huey was brilliant. Okay, he's a paramilitary. A lot of you paramilitary groups can learn from this. Okay, I'm a paramilitary. I believe in armed self-defense. I believe in this gun, the power of this gun. I believe what Chairman Mao Zedong says, that political power grows out of the barrel. Because I know the gun is led by proper ideology. What did Huey believe in? Revolutionary principles. Most of you don't know your revolutionary principles, but you're running around with a gun. Negro, I can't march with you because I'm not certain you know which end is the barrel and which end is the stock, or who to point the barrel at and who should hold the stock, the butt. I'm confused to your ideology. Huey wasn't confused. We're a paramilitary group. There is no difference between military strategies or political strategies in Huey's understanding of Revolutionary Party. He's saying, I believe in Chairman Mao Zedong, that my gun is part of my politics. It is a part of my policy, a part of my promoting liberation politics. It is not the politics. I know and believe in revolutionary principles, that the gun is a tool to be used in the strategy of teaching what Huey said, African Americans the right to armed self-defense. And that what? It is not an end to a means. It was not an end in itself. That it was an instrument, a tool. It was necessary in the advancement of Black African people here. We saw what happened. I mean, we're no fool. We saw what happened to Black Wall Street. He saw what happened to Rosewood. He knows trying to reason and rationale with the oppressive ruling class, particularly white folk, is futile without real power to back it up. You're only just talking. Hey, if we was just talking, I'd go get my Moorish brothers. No disrespect. Huey understood the necessity, the need. He understood, he was able to grasp that teaching of Mao and take it and make it applicable to us. This is the genius. Agree with him or not agree with him. You have to acknowledge his genius in being able to formulate a revolutionary ideology, a revolutionary theory that was particular to us, and he married the two. What? Did he not marry the two? It has never been a group like the Black Panther Party for self-defense, birthed out of the very real struggle of Black Africans here in America, a revolutionary organization, birthed out of that, so great they influenced the world. Revolutionary organizations taking their motto, their structure, have been birthed across the world. Look up Black Panther Party. They're everywhere. I'm not even talking about contemporary. I'm talking about after the time of Dr. Huey P. Newton, Defense Minister Dr. Huey P. Newton. That's what I'm talking about, how influential he was. We haven't accepted our own, embraced our own, immortalized our own, studied the teachings of our own, advanced according to the theories and philosophies of our own, putting those into practice of our own. We haven't done that. We have these Negroes come and shoot down the very genius of these people. So here we understand that. Don't let me get on because we'll get a couple more minutes. This was understood about Huey with the Black Panther Party for self-defense, patrolling police, reading people their constitutional rights, agitating the police, and politically educating the people. What were they doing? Whoa, slow down. See, now we're getting into some Panther shit. This is what I've been waiting on. I can't wait till the next part because we're coming on our 10 minutes. Now we're getting into some Pantherism. Now we're getting into what we're about. Now we're getting into the meat of it. What this thing is about. What did the Panthers do with the Black Panther Party for self-defense? The BPPSD, baby. Patrolling police, reading people their constitutional rights, agitated the police. And agitating the police and politically educating the people. Man, they were out there doing their thing. They were doing their thing. This is what we do. This is why we encourage everybody to participate. This is not that show though, but let's keep teaching in these last couple minutes. So they're out there doing this. The Black Panther Party for self-defense had become an armed and armed agitating propaganda team, especially after publishing the Black Panther newspapers. They had become an armed, agitating propaganda machine. Must I do the political science on it? I think it speaks for itself. And when you do comparative studies to this development, this third development as the new Black Panther Party, this fourth development, man, it's laughable. Is there any reason that we're coming under attack? And I'm just talking to because I'm an alumni. Yes, I was new Black Panther Party under the leadership of Dr. Malik Zulu Shabazz when he was our chairman, and then Chief of Staff Hashim Nzinga. Rest in power, brother. See, so I'm an alumni. So I say this sincerely to you guys. Do your homework and you will see how terribly we've deviated, how we've disconnected, how we no longer, we are so far from what our predecessors was on. We're unrecognizable as a continuance of that struggle, as a sincere, real revolutionary group. We're looked, it's clownish. So anyway, we find that the Black Panther Party for self-defense had become an armed, agitating propaganda team, especially after publishing the Black Panther newspapers. This was in fact not armed defense, but a step further without perhaps its participants. This was realizing it was a form of legal armed agitation propaganda. This was not in fact armed defense. They're saying it wasn't in fact armed defense. I can see that. At this time, there really wasn't. It became armed defense when it became under attack. But right now, the display of guns, the open carry, the coming out with the arms, which agitated propaganda. Absolutely. It was saying that we're willing to stand up for the violations of human rights that you're inflicting upon us. And no more so that we're Black. We're willing to stand up and die because you're killing us anyway. So we're going to exercise our constitutional rights to bear arms, like our so-called, but see, these guys are slick. They get gun clubs. They know not to push the limit. Here, Huey and everybody was pushing the limit. They got it to push the limits, to put it in their face. Not only are we going to have arms, we're going to build the institutions that make these arms frightening to you. Right now, you're just Negroes with guns. You're another militia. Paramilitary. They deal with paramilitaries. They have people trained to deal with paramilitary. They're not worried about it. In fact, and most of you Black males paramilitaries, many of you are police officers. have taken an oath and allegiance to the state. So they're not worried about you. You're monitored. You're under control. You guys are all right. It is these paramilitaries, like what Huey has, that doesn't separate military and political, that will do all the training that you guys are doing and say that we are still staunch revolutionaries, revolutionary black nationalists who understand that though we're exercising a right given to us, we know at any moment it can be taken from us specifically. And if you wait for that moment, they would do it individually by criminalizing you and make it illegal for you to bear your arms. But you don't see that. You still believe in your Second Amendment, so you have these Second Amendment marches. Fuck a Second Amendment march. Man, what the hell is that? You should have your guns out there, strapped on your back, not holding them, strapped on your back while you out there dishing grits out. Behind a big thing of grits with the whole AK, AR-15, whatever you have on your bazooka on your back, with a ladle. What's those things you dip grits with? A big dipper, a scooper, with your gun on your back. This is how they didn't separate politics from the armed defense. I'm not saying that I ever saw my father and them serving us with their armament. You might see a side piece or something. But it wasn't a separation of the two. It wasn't a paramilitary that doesn't separate politics, doesn't have a defense wing. They don't have a defense wing. Why is ours different? Because I have groups, so-called paramilitary groups, so-called gun groups, that for whatever reason won't partner with me in combining the political and the armament to forward advance the nation. But I'm getting off the cause. We understand that Huey understood that he didn't need that, those two mechanisms, because it was all one and the same, and he was an agitating propaganda unit. When we say legal, the fact that having armed guns in open display were based on the fact that at the time you could do this in California. This is what nothing new. In most northern areas of the United States, of North America, you could do this. So the BPP for self-defense was in its founding a legal armed agitational propaganda unit. You see, they weren't doing anything criminal. They were agitating the state. So what they were finding was a legal armed agitational propaganda unit. Basically, they was flaunting the fact black men got guns and we look good doing it. We got berets and shit. We sharp and we'll shoot you. If you try to violate our right, we're going to exercise our right. And it was pissing them off. Cleaver secretly joined the Black Panther Party for self-defense because it would violate his parole to carry guns. The Black Panther Party for self-defense achieved national notoriety when on May 2nd, 1967, the Black Panther Party led an armed delegation of Panthers on the California Capitol building to oppose the Mulford Act, a bill being passed, taking away the right to carry guns in public. See, that's what the agitation brings. The agitation brings real conflict, and they begin to change the laws. Why did they change the laws? They began to change the laws so they could criminalize these brothers, criminalize these sisters, criminalize the party. And when you can criminalize the party, like Sundar Alakola said, you can come in and not only gives them pretext, because now they're past searching you. Now they're past looking to see what you're up to. They clearly see, and you've agitated them. You got the guns. You tell them, come take a look. And now they passed that law. This is what will distinguish the revolutionary from the Negro just talking. Now, when it is criminal to carry that gun, how many of y'all Negroes are going to put down guns? I see some of y'all putting them down before it's criminal. You got your rights and you put them down. So how many of you will put down your gun when it is criminalized? We find them passing or attempting to pass a Mulford Act to ban open carry. That's why folks tired of looking at these Negroes walking around with these guns and bandoliers on their chest. And so they criminalize it so they can come in. And like I said, they're past searching. They want to come in and kill. This was a kill order. Because if you put down your gun, you're not revolutionary. You lost that way. You lost that way. And if you keep your gun, you're criminalized, so you're going to be forced to fight. In concluding, the New York Times wrote about that Wednesday, May 3rd, in the New York Times, Wednesday, May 3rd, 1967. An issue reported an article titled, Armed Negroes Enter California Assembly in Gun Bill Protest. This is what the what the title is saying. Armed Negroes Enter California Assembly in the Gun Bill Protest. Quote the article. Sacramento, California, May 2nd, Associated Press. A group of young Negroes armed with loaded rifles, pistols, and shotguns entered the Capitol today and barged into the Assembly chamber during a debate. Members of the group said they represented the Black Panther Party of Oakland area and had come to protest a bill restricting the carrying of loaded weapons within city limits. One shouted that the bill had been introduced for the racist Oakland police force. That's the New York Times. That can be found in the New York Times, Wednesday, May 3rd, 1967, page 3. Hilarious. Hilarious. The brothers went in there and did something. That's what I'm talking about. The brothers was like later for that. We going, actions taking place. Man, like always, brothers, sisters, it's been good. I appreciate everybody joining in, listening in. Like I said, y'all know the mission. I'm definitely going to say hit the Cash App. I'm going to say donate to the mission. Y'all know the mission. Y'all know what we on. Those that know me personally know I get out here, boots on the ground, and do it. If not, if you want to see it, buy the equipment. I'll show you. Not to play. Get to know. Maybe I'll be in your city. If you're active in the city, who knows? You'll look up and see a P.E.C. representative. See one of us out there trying to educate, agitate the masses to participate in their own self-determination. That's what this is an attempt for. Check out Sister Nundy's page. Sister Nundy 3GP. Hit that, the camp. You know it goes down. Panther 48. Shouts out to SVDL, coldest league in the game. Got my debate coming tomorrow at 8. I need to get back on that one. I'm sitting there playing with y'all. My man, Don Kemet, is colonialism synonymous with integration? He took the affirmative. I'm going to show you that colonialism and integration are two completely, entirely different things, though they may sound familiar to the untrained eye or to the eye that has been beat into an integrationist state of mind. But I am going to beat him back, God willing, into an original state of mind and lets him know that, no, you're wrong. Dead ass. So looking for that tomorrow at 9 o'clock. With that, man, everybody, I'm going to leave you as I greet you. That's all powers to oppressed people, African power to an African people, and Black power.